I welcome in everybody. It is Wednesday night. Daniel is back. And speaking of back, we're going to take it back. We're going to do a little old school. Daniel, once upon a time, this show was really centralized around, DeSoto Central, did a lot of just Mississippi State. And we're going to kind of get there. We're talk to a guy who's played with a lot of guests that we've had on this show. That being said, Brant Blaylock, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you guys doing?
Oh man, good until you came on here looking like John Cena, all squared up with that hat and a little trap game. I see you there, but um, man, no, just blessed to have you on here. Got the opportunity to see you this past weekend out there. Growing the game, selling the product. Love to see it. But we're gonna get your story. But before we do, got to break the ice. Everybody likes to talk music. You haven't played in a few years, but let's say you were gonna play today. You had to go out there and let's go hitter because you were a hitter and pitcher. But let's say you're a hitter. What would be your walk-up song? I'm putting you on the spot. Like right now, on the fly, pick what would come to you.
Immediately, I'm going Stone's Throw by the Red Clay Strays, the acoustic version.
Daniel, do you happen to know that song?
Of course, I do not know that
And
song.
neither do I. That's why Daniel, while I'm getting this next question, don't cut me in the middle. Just have it prepped up and ready. That way we can get educated together. But while he's looking that up, talk to me about baseball movies, Brant. What's your favorite baseball movie all time?
Um, I'm tempted to say The Sandlot, but that sounds like a cliche answer, so I'm not going to go Sandlot. I'm going to go Everybody Wants Some. You ever seen Everybody Wants Some?
Dude, you're killing me with stuff I've never banned. Like I'm getting educated for real.
I like to consider myself a music movie guy. Everybody Wants Some. I will stand on is the most underrated and the best baseball movie.
Well, I mean, you can have the music on me, but I consider myself a movie guy. We actually had a five-person sports movie draft, and I actually dominated them with the people deciding who won, and everybody was picking mine. And I did pick the Sandlot with the number one pick, to be clear. That's everybody's favorite. That's the one you go to. And then I was very smart in my picking. I was getting diverse, and I made sure I got the hockey fans, Brant, and I picked Miracle, and they made fun of me in real time, but I locked this thing up by putting that on there.
That's fair. That or like Major League. I watch Major League 3 times a week.
That is Daniel's favorite right there.
Lines fighting like hell. Try to keep our eyes wide open. We're always running from, running to, running late.
So I'll give you a little backstory on this song, Brant. I don't even know if this is the right guys because when you put acoustic in there, like it opens up the playing field to it could be anybody. So when I look at these people, I've never seen them before.
Is it a tall, skinny white guy, dark hair?
I mean, it's a band of guys, and yeah, like there is a tall, skinny guy, dark hair. There's
It's got to be the Red Clay Show. I don't know if I've seen that video that you're talking about, but that song is a.
What I like about this song is it does have the mysterious vibe. It's going to give people the thought: is this guy fixing to come up here and hit a bomb? What do we got going? Because I don't feel like that unless I'm just maybe living under a rock. I don't feel like that's maybe the most famous man. But you just said, being a music guy, you probably know of a lot of music a lot of people don't know.
I'd like to think so. I used to be much better about it, but now, especially with the job, like I got to play music at the tent that people want to listen to. So I'm on a Morgan Wallen kick. You can't really mess with Morgan Wallen with people standing around, but I like to think
I was floored during my episode yesterday. I haven't even told Daniel yet, but I am interviewing a player from Colombia, coming to the States. And when I asked him who's his go-to American musician, he says Morgan Wallen. And the reason that's significant is Daniel will tell you 9 out of 10 guys we have on here say Morgan Wallen. I was like, even the guy from Colombia says Morgan Wallen. This dude is killing this game, man.
he is on top of it. Guy just makes hits.
But Daniel don't like none of them still, though.
no, not my cup of tea. I don't know why. It's just not my thing. I'd rather listen to Zach Bryan than Morgan Wallen.
I just saw Zach Bryan in Little Rock like 2 months ago. Second time I've seen him.
You just got to handle it, Daniel, like Jackson did at Lindsey Nelson. He didn't know who Morgan Wallen was, but I told him he was famous, and next thing you know, he's sitting next to his parents acquiring tickets. You just got to roll with it, bro.
I mean, if I and this is bad on my part, Morgan Wallen could be sitting next to me out to dinner, and I wouldn't even know who that guy is. Just sad reality.
He has been to a Taylor Swift concert recently, so he's not an old dinosaur here. This guy's up to date.
That's not a bad one to end up at.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it, but I gotta get away from Memphis trap music and open my horizons to more that's out there.
I do got to ask you, Brant, after I left you the other day, at your display at the athletic house, I went over there to the ball fields. My son was giving out the seeds, and these kids, like, it's just a different day and age. They're like 8 years old coming out to walk-up music. That wasn't a thing when you played. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, I feel like it's too much. Do you kind of feel the same?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because the kid's not picking his walkout song. Like, that 8-year-old's not picking his walkout song. So yeah, it's like to me, parents choosing, like the question you asked me, it's like the parents, it's their one shot to do a walkout song, and they're like some crazy EDM song that nobody's ever heard, and their 8-year-old just wants them to play probably Morgan Wallen. So yeah, it's a little much.
Daniel, you got a little slugger, 8 years old, going to be walking to the plate. Pick his walk-up song.
I mean, I personally,
you're picking Memphis trap music right on cue, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. If my daughter plays softball and she's like, pick a walk-up song, I'm like, I got you covered. But the hard thing is I can handle the stares looking at me. What I couldn't handle is the perception that gives my kid.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a ton of like, I feel like I see these videos all the time, and it's like 8-year-old travel baseball, and like these parents have walkout songs for their kid. I'm just like, gone are the days where you just hear the sounds of just baseball.
Right. Yeah, you can't just cheer. We have to play in between every at bat. So.
Right.
No doubt. So one more question, and we'll actually get into your story. Got to know right now in sports, who do you find to be the most iconic sports figure to you? And this can be any sport, nationwide, worldwide. Who's the person that if they're on TV, man, they're who you got to tune into?
A good question. I'm sticking to the baseball route. Like, if Mike Trout's on TV, like a guy who's dealt with a lot of injuries, and so I feel like kids in that like 8-9-year-old range maybe don't appreciate Mike Trout. He may be like the older guy to them, but it's somebody who obviously, like when I'm in high school, Mike Trout's kind of
well, the problem with Mike Trout is what Daniel has always said on this show. He would watch Mike Trout always, but he plays on the West Coast. Daniel lives on the East Coast. So by the time Mike Trout's hitting TV, it's 11 o'clock Daniel's time.
Exactly. Okay. So like at that point, that's why, like, if I get a chance to watch Mike Trout on TV, like just even if he strikes out looking in 3 pitches, like something about the at bat like catches your eye. So I love if Mike Trout's on TV more than, I don't watch the NBA really. I do like the NFL, but just baseball is Mike Trout unequivocally.
Yeah, it's hard not to. I mean, guys 31, 32 years old. He's all-star 10 plus times probably.
Mm-hmm.
And like he was like the Griffey of his era, of his time, and he's still playing at a high level. And I think the one thing that holds him back is he's just not had very good teams that he's been on. It's not that he hasn't had a couple good pieces around him. It's just they haven't been able to reach the pinnacle.
Baseball's not like basketball or football. You as an individual can't carry a team on your back to a championship. That's the problem.
Yep. Even somebody like him, like he is so much better than everybody else. Like at this point, obviously he's a little older, and so it's not quite as substantial as maybe like 5 years ago. But 5 years ago, that guy it wasn't even close. Like, was so much better than everybody else. And even with like Shohei, even when they had Rendon,
I mean,
they just can't do it.
He changed the like he created the market value for players of his caliber.
Mhm.
Because that last long-term contract he signed was a contract that is far, like it's been surpassed big time. But then when he got it, they were like, this is the biggest blockbuster, deal ever known to man. And now
Right.
it's like common occurrence with some of these big athletes. So
Yep.
I want to get into you though, Brant, man. I want to talk about you. Obviously, we mentioned the DC, we mentioned, Mississippi area, but tell me a little bit about where you're from and your hometown.
Yeah, so I'm from South Haven. Like a lot of guys that have been on the show, probably listen to the show. My whole family's from South Haven. My dad's from South Haven. My mom's from South Haven, Horn Lake. It's where I grew up. I lived in pretty much the same house from first grade until I graduated high school. My parents just sold that house like 3 months ago. So I'm nothing but South Haven. I never moved. Went to the same school all through school. The only time I ever left, even after college, obviously I was moved down to Florida, but even through college, I was at Mississippi State, Northwest, Southern Miss. So
just a Mississippi guy through and through, man. You had one stint where you could go to Florida, and I think everybody goes to Florida at least once in their life.
I gotta try it. I gotta try it at least once. I was like, maybe I'm not a Mississippi guy. Let's try the beach. And I was like, no, I'm a Mississippi guy.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned mom and dad. You got any brothers or sisters?
I do. I have an older brother. He's 31, named Garrett.
Nice. What was that like growing up? You guys competitive? Y'all getting along, but boys being boys?
Yeah, boys being boys. Like we laugh about the fact that we would get in our little fights like every brother does, like when the game room doors upstairs closed. But in terms of like your everyday stuff, like me and my brother never fought. To this day, we never really have gotten in much of an argument. He also played baseball 4 years older than me. So like when he was a senior in high school, I was in 8th grade. And so I got to kind of watch him all through high school, and obviously growing up. And so he was like my baseball person.
What do you think pushes you more, to be the younger sibling looking up to the older sibling, or the older sibling trying to be like, I'm the man, to the younger sibling?
I think the younger siblings got to have the advantage. Like you just get you want to be your older brother. I think most people would attribute like you want to be your older brother, and also like they've got to be the guinea pig. They've got to go do it first.
Right.
So like, all the lessons, you just get to sit back and watch them. A lot of them obviously do it right. You get to watch the things that they do wrong. And so me personally, like I attribute, my brother was a good baseball player. Like he went and played in Northwest, had a good 2-year career, decided not to play anymore after that. But I attribute like a lot of the success that I had throughout my whole career from being able to just watch my brother play baseball. Like I'm not in love with baseball if my brother's not in love with baseball first. And I'm not at the field watching him play it. I'm not going to hit with him when I'm 7 or 8 and I should probably be playing video games. My brother's going to hit, so I'm going to go hit.
He's like, nah, Brant, you're going to throw BP to me, and then you're going to go pick up all the baseballs.
Exactly.
Doesn't that sound fun?
Exactly. Set this ball on the tee 150 times and then pick it.
Right. I always said having an older sibling was great because they could draw the line. You knew where the line was, and you knew what instances as the younger sibling you could push the line further, and you knew where you needed to back up from that line, especially when it came to, your parents and like the rules within the house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But let's get into it. Obviously, the name Doolins is huge in travel ball, especially in the Mid-South. People, associate travel baseball with a few different teams in the area, and Doolins is one of them. I mean, you got to play alongside Luke Alexander, Tristan Barlow, Keegan James, Jake Mangum, Hunter Stovall. When you put a lineup like that together and just a massive talent like that, like I feel like, how did you guys lose any games? But like, I guess, talk to me a little bit about how dominant y'all really were, or was it to the point where you guys are good, but like you were branching out and there were other teams with the same types of caliber of players, and it would just kind of push you to make you better. But obviously, it was a challenge nonetheless, I'm sure. But was it a challenge? I mean, because people will look at those names and they'll go, "Oh man, these guys just steamrolled everybody."
Right. Yeah, like I won't pretend that like it was like around here for the most part, and obviously there's so many good travel ball organizations here. Um, it was a little thinner back in 2012 to 2015 when I was doing it. So yeah, I would say locally it was always pretty fun playing with all those guys because there wasn't a ton of um, competition kind of running at that same level. We
Not
kind
like
of
there's
took
going on right now. There's
yeah,
82 teams over there at Snow and Grove right now.
exactly. Like you very rarely nowadays are getting a travel ball team with I don't remember the exact number, but I think everybody on that team played in the SEC. Like I think and I don't think you really get that anymore just because of the diversity that's come into it. But to answer the second part of the question, it was even more fun getting to, go to Atlanta or go to Jupiter or go somewhere like that where that you get to push it a little bit. And then you run into a Banditos or like a Chet Lemon's Juice back when they were doing it. And you see guys like, Ryan Olenek, played Ryan Olenek in high school before you even know who each other are. Tristan McKenzie, who's throwing for the Guardians, is like throwing for that team. And so even at that age, you can watch guys similar to like we got to watch Austin, where that person's doing something different than all of us are. Like we're all pretty good, but that guy is something that's we're not. And so it was always fun getting to go to those tournaments. And obviously sometimes you get roughed up, but that was much more fun than hanging around here, playing it, whether it be Gagliano or somewhere and just kind of whooping up on everybody.
Right. People, talk about the differences between travel baseball and high school baseball. But for you, you had the privilege and like I say luxury, but really, I mean, you guys just had a dominant crew with a lot of the guests from our podcast on the DeSoto Central team. But I mean, you had Dallas Woolfolk, Keegan James, you had Austin Riley,
Hayden Tapper, man.
yeah. I mean, there's
Austin Klebsig, Ole Miss catcher.
yeah, you could really create an amazing lineup from just the amount of talent that has come through there. But the rumor is, and I don't know if you've heard this rumor, but the rumor is the 2014 team without the state title is the best of them all. Is there any truth to that rumor?
There's
And
100% truth.
and why do you think that is?
I think if you take away Taylor Braley and Kirk McCarty from Oak Grove High School, our 2014 team probably goes all of the playoffs without losing a game. We win state 2-0. That team had, I think, 11 or 12 guys that ended up playing SEC baseball on one high school team, all within a 2 class, all juniors or seniors. Not like we've got, you throw Blaze in there because he was on the 8th grade team, but like juniors and seniors that are going to play, who went and played baseball at a high level in the SEC, not just, got on the team. Two draft picks, Clay Casey playing center field. I wasn't even the center fielder. I was playing right field. The pitching rotation, like Austin Riley, Drew Crosby, Dallas Woolfolk, Keegan James, Spencer Price was barely throwing. Like it was that team would honestly beat the 2015 team by several runs. Like we just had the advantage, obviously, in 2015 of being the same age as the oldest people everywhere else, and frankly, nobody was better than that class.
The thing about it is, Daniel, if he was like the only one to say it, then I'd say maybe not. But like that whole crew that you listed off all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm. That 2014 team was gnarly. Like we played some inter squads that were like, you cut that team in half and you still have two teams that are probably still winning state. Didn't pull it off, obviously, but are going to play in the state championship with 2 inter squad teams. So it was a really, really good high school baseball team.
you ended up being super highly, coveted. I mean, you were dominant at DeSoto Central. You were dominant at Doolin's. When did you start getting recruiting, and then why did you ultimately choose Mississippi State?
It happened pretty late for me, especially compared to obviously the list of guys you just talked about. I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't grow into my body until I was probably a junior in high school. I was in the front row of all the pictures until my junior year of high school. It really probably started that, Ole Miss came in my sophomore year and was kind of the first big school that started showing me like real attention, not just a letter to come to a camp. And honestly, I was kind of always set on going there. But my junior year, it was my first year not playing football for the first time. First time I'm like really, really focusing on baseball since my whole life, I'm guessing. And that was when I kind of really took the next step. And like, I went from just
now
being
I got to ask a question, Brant, because rumor on the street was Coach Monaghan finally said, "Hey, you guys aren't playing football no more." And based on the timeline you just gave me, it sounds like you were part of that same group.
No, I was getting hurt a lot playing football. Like concussion wise, I was in the hospital 2 times over the span of 4 weeks.
So you're the guy that set the example and the reason why nobody else could play football after you. That's what it is.
I don't know about all that, but it's actually more Flip. I don't know if he watches the show or not. Our former high school coach or high school football coach. He was the one that was more pulling the strings in terms of y'all need to be playing football and not baseball. Y'all need to be giving y'all's time to football. And we're like, look, brother, like, I don't know if you are aware that we're a pretty good group of guys playing baseball that have been playing baseball since we were 7, but like we definitely aren't quitting baseball to come play. And shout out to Desoto Central, love them to death, but not a powerhouse football program by any means. Especially at that time. Like obviously they've improved a lot, but in 2012 to ask that group of baseball players that they need to hone it in and lock in on football was kind of off the rails.
Yeah, and I mean Daniel was the guy for our school that played both, because I didn't play baseball, but we were still best friends, and the reason I even particularly cared about baseball, and he's had conversations with so many guys on here. The guy that comes to mind first, and being that you were a Mississippi State guy, Landon Sims said his whole mentality on the mound as a closer came from being a high school football star. He has that Friday Night Lights mentality, and so whether we've talked about mindset or just agilities as an athlete altogether, a lot of these guys have said they've benefited. And so, me and Daniel, without having the exact science on it, just based upon, the guys who were dual sport athletes, obviously it doesn't have to be just football. They seem to be more successful, or not even just guys and girls, not having an off season, also not getting burnt out by playing the same sport year round seems to be meaningful.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I think obviously guys do just fine, like just sticking to baseball, like to each their own. But I think, especially in high school, like for me, it was more of a physical thing. Like I was a wide receiver and played, safety. Like I was always really fast, was always pretty strong, could always throw the ball a mile. And for me, that's once I quit and was able to start fine tuning the baseball aspects of it, like I certainly wouldn't have been the kind of toolsy kind of player I was without a background in playing, wide receiver.
Right.
Mine was less mindset, more. No, I don't pretend that I was like a headhunter, like the grittiest dude on the field. I wasn't soft by any means, but mine certainly was more, made me get in the weight room, made me learn how to run, be agile.
Yeah, well, it was the whole conversation and everything had came up because I was at Cade Smith's house and we were throwing the football, and the length of his backyard from fence to fence, which is how far we decided to go, like stretching it back. And I mean, I could throw a football, a good on a dime, accurate about 55 yards, and so he started extending it out way further than that. And I mean, throwing a frozen rope, what I felt like was 70, 75 yards, not exaggerating. And I was like, dude, why don't you play football? Because I had been at the DC games and seen their quarterback, right? And like not trying to knock whoever that kid was, kid wasn't throwing 25 yards accurate. And I'm like watching him spin it, and he's like, coach won't let us play football. And I was like, that is a shame, man.
I don't know what his rules ended up being. I know it wasn't like that for us, but it again, I don't want to turn it into a DeSoto Central football is not any good show, but it's one of those things where like,
hey, let me tell you something. Okay, we played for us our senior year. We went 2-8, man. You're not gonna hurt any feelings by saying anything bad about anybody's football team. Am I wrong, Daniel?
No, I mean, we had a good time and we had really good individual athletes, but I don't think as a collective unit we weren't put trying to say this nicely, the coaching didn't put us in an advantageous spot to run the type of plays for the athletes that we had, if that makes sense.
It wasn't an excuse, Brent, because the year after we were gone, they had a new coaching staff and they ended up making the playoffs. And you can ask those guys
with less athletic talent than what we had. But
we've had the guys come on and say it.
I don't want to take anything away from those. Those guys were our friends and they were good and they worked hard. But I'll say this, Brant, and you might could agree or disagree. Playing two different sports, like while if I would have focused on one sport or the other, I probably could have been better individually at either one. But I wouldn't go back and change playing two sports for anything, because I think that made me, it taught me a little bit more about like how hard I need to work. And you mentioned in the weight room, because my work ethic started in the weight room through football. And it was something that when we worked out in the weight room with baseball, those guys just didn't have it.
Right.
And like, it was just the timing of which baseball and lifting weights wasn't like, it was frowned upon, but like, I love lifting weights and I got after it. So, I don't know about you, but would you, looking back on it now, would you have changed it and said, let me focus just on baseball? Or do you think sticking with playing both at the amount of time that you did was the right move?
I would have stuck to playing both. Honestly, I wish I would have kept playing. Like I couldn't keep playing. Like I got, like I said, like 3 or 4 head injuries over a span of like 4 weeks. The doctor actually told my mom if I wanted to say my ABCs when I was 30, I needed to quit playing football. So unfortunately, it was slightly out of my control.
Right.
But I do wish that I would have, my senior year or something, I made a run at going back and doing it and just elected against it. I had a scholarship to play baseball at that point and decided that probably wasn't in my best interest. But no, like I think even more than the physical aspect of it, of playing two sports, of playing football, like the weight room, and y'all can attest to this, like being in a football locker room versus being in a baseball locker room, like a football locker room is hilarious. Like that's where the camaraderie of a football locker room, like the things that make you grow up in a football locker room,
things
like
that stay within that locker room too.
Yeah, like some of the craziest stories that you can tell from high school. Like the first time you went from being a 13-year-old in 8th grade, and then now you're at high school summer workouts and you meet the guy who plays center on the varsity football team, who is a psychopath. And like your first introduction into like, okay, these are like relatively grown men. That does something psyche wise, like for other sports that playing, not that baseball guys aren't gritty, but they're not defensive linemen by any means.
Yeah. I feel you. I was there. I was 13. Well, to be honest, I started going in 8th grade to football workouts in the summer. And then when I was 13, I remember school hadn't started and we'd started 2-a-days, and like that was a big eye opener because you had everybody together. And it was like, okay, I'm not just playing with my, my 12 and under group of guys. Like I'm playing with 18-year-old men.
Yep. And that is even drastically, to circle it all the way back to baseball, like as big of a difference as that is football wise. that's what I tell a lot. Like I coached a little travel 14-year-old team, and explaining to them, like, even to the point of baseball, like how different it is. Like, yeah, there might be a 14-year-old throwing, 82, 83, 84, whatever it might be. But that 82, 83, 84 is not the same thing as a 17-year-old trying to, earn a scholarship throwing 82, 83, 84. Like, so yeah, that just going into high school, all of the things that you take in specifically to football, um, are invaluable to growing as an athlete, whether you play baseball, basketball, you run track, whatever it is. Like you gotta diversify your mentalities that you run into.
Yeah, no doubt. So ultimately, obviously, go with baseball. Go to Mississippi State, not Ole Miss. To me, covering just the last 5 years. Obviously, you were slightly before that. I feel like, if you're to pick between the two, that's the right one. But I gotta ask, because you talked about Ole Miss was the leader in the clubhouse, but you look at the guys on that roster, you look at the guys you grew up and played with. Did that have something to do with why you chose Mississippi State?
Certainly. Uh, Certainly. So Keegan and Austin, um, have been, we played every baseball game from 7 years old, together. And so to say that that didn't influence the situation, like that was honestly 95% of the situation. Like I also knew in my head that, again, back to Austin being a different thing, like Austin's probably not coming to school with us anymore, which was fine. Um, but while Ole Miss was the leader for a long time, like I in the back of my head, I always wanted to. It was Mississippi State, like it was the Palmetto Center, and it was Dudy Noble, and it was, all the things that I wanted at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like living here now for 13 years, Brant, I can honestly say, because as an LSU fan, right? So I'm not biased in this situation. When I just see all the things over the time that I've been watching college baseball, if I'm a kid, I don't know, everything about Mississippi State just seems a little bit bigger. They obviously both have a championship now, but even if you go before that, like you said, not even you talk about the facilities, but you even just talk about the greats that played at Mississippi State, right? With Palmero and Will Clark and all that, and then obviously Ron Polk, and everything. It's, I don't know, something about Mississippi State, but you get there, and in 2017, you end up redshirting. Did I got the year right?
2016.
2016, you end up redshirting. You joked with me before the show on reasons why, but ultimately, what I want to focus on is when we talk to guests, a lot of them say they benefit so much from redshirting because it slows everything down. You have the opportunity to just take it all in. We just talked about weight room. What you're talking about, that nutrition, how practices, seeing SEC play, because it's one thing to watch it on TV, it's another thing to be out on that field. So talk about what you were able to take in and learn from that redshirt freshman experience.
Yeah. So for me, it was one of those things where I didn't realize it at the time. Everybody coming out of high school, you think that you're going to be playing center field at Mississippi State as a freshman, and you're going to be, Jake Mangum or whoever. Eye-opening for me when I got there to see, just like we talked about the jump from being a 13-year-old to facing the 17-year-old, like coming out of high school, being an 18-year-old, and then you've got, Dakota Hudson standing on the mound throwing 99 miles an hour with a 93-mile-an-hour cutter. It's kind of like, okay, like I might need to. This might take a little bit longer than I thought it. This might be a lot harder than I thought it was. And so I obviously didn't want a redshirt that first year. I wanted to come in and be, the guy. But had a not great fall, by any stretch. And so kind of knew going into Christmas break, like that was probably going to be on the table. I mean, our outfield that year is Jacob Robinson, who ended up playing for the Detroit Tigers, Jake Mangum, Reed Humphreys, old downtown Cody Brown, fifth-year senior captain. Like, I'm a pretty logical guy, I like to consider myself. And I'm looking at that situation going, okay, I just had, a $140 in the fall, and I'm 18, and those are the guys that are playing the outfield. Like, I'm probably sitting this one out. And so when I came back, they told me I'm in a red shirt. I told John Cohen I didn't want to. He actually told me he said I'd probably get maybe 10 at bats on the year, and me being cocky, arrogant 18-year-old, not seeing the big picture. It was actually before our first game. We were playing North Dakota State, and he had met with me the week before that to tell me that I was going to redshirt. And so I'm pissed for no reason. And I went and found him. He was sitting in the bleachers before the game and watching the game before us. We were playing the night game. I went and found him, and I was like, look, like, I'm cool with 10 at bats. Like, if you give me 10 at bats, I'll, hit 600, and you're not going to be able to redshirt me, yada, yada, yada. And then fast forward, he never let me hit. So he probably was looking out for me there. But yeah, but the weight room, like getting a chance to, coming in and being a freshman All-American, like all SEC freshman, is so much more difficult than people give it credit for. Like, those are like one of one type of players. Like, it's extremely difficult to play high school baseball and then the next year, go compete in, Hoover at a high level, compete in Omaha at a high level. So I needed a year to learn how to lift weights correctly, like continue to grow into my body. Honestly, just get better at baseball. Like, I was always a physical guy. Like I said, I could run, I could throw, jump, could hit it as far as you needed me to. But the skill part of baseball was where I lacked. Just hitting a fastball was difficult for me my freshman year of college, because I just swing wise wasn't all the way there to be able to start turning around 97-mile-an-hour heaters. So that year for me was huge. Just working out, I think I gained like 25 pounds of muscle. That's kind of when I took my big step into kind of growing into the hitter that I kind of ended up being later on.
Well, interesting enough, I want to ask you right out the gate, because I was going to go into 2017 with you talking about that transition weight wise and muscle wise. You are still a pitcher at the end of the day as well. And I'm sure Daniel's very curious as a guy who was a pitcher. How much did it affect you? Did it help your pitching progress, or is it something that kind of hindered you while you were helping your hitting, but maybe took your pitching a step back?
Well, at that point, so my true freshman year at Mississippi State, and to circle back to the previous question, one of the reasons I chose Mississippi State, they were the only place that didn't want me to pitch and hit. I just wanted to be a hitter. I didn't throw a lot at DeSoto Central for obvious reasons. Was not needed whatsoever. But I chose Mississippi State because I just wanted to be an outfielder. I just wanted to hit. I didn't want to do both. So my true freshman year, I didn't pitch at all. I didn't throw a single bullpen. It wasn't on the radar. I didn't start pitching till kind of the back half of my redshirt freshman year.
Yeah.
That was when that came along.
Well, so you end up, in 2017, you make 5 appearances out of the bullpen. The first 4 actually really successful. It wasn't until the Georgia game you struggled. So I'm kind of curious what Mississippi State was trying to do, because, 4 out of 5 games doing well is great. Like, and then all of a sudden you weren't pitching no more. What happened?
So that Georgia game is a pretty big one for me in terms of that's the last game I ever played for Mississippi State. And I guess I'll share the story without throwing anybody too far under the bus. But I was dealing with like some shoulder issues, an injury, not a stress thing. Like, I was not okay. Couldn't really throw. Our head coach at the time in 2017 told me to go down to the bullpen and start throwing. I think we were up 9-0 or something like that on Georgia, 9-1. And I'm like, I'm clearly on the can't throw list. I'm not really sure why I'm jogging down here to go throw.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if he forgot, distracted, whatever it may be. But anyway, I go down there to check the box. I'm not even really throwing. I'm just kind of not trying to get chewed out on national television. And so I believe Pilkington was throwing that game. He had thrown like 8 1/3 or something, like was shoving. And I remember hearing our pitching coach on the walkie say Blaylock's in after this hitter. And I hadn't thrown a pitch. Like, I'm not throwing. I'm hurt. So I tell the pitching coach, can't go. Like, y'all already know this. He walkies back in. Blaylock can't go. They walkie back. Blaylock's going in after this hitter. And I'm like, what? Like, okay. So I try to let like 2 rip just to give me a shot at it. Not good. I jog out to the mound. I think the first warm-up fastball I threw was 81. And at that time I was probably 90, 92-ish typically. First warm-up ball I threw was 81. I think first actual pitch I threw was an 84 mile an hour fastball. So the first probably 3 pitches I threw were hitting the gap, doubles off the wall. And at that point, again, in another life, I wasn't. I like to consider myself a pretty mellow, nice guy. At that point, I was not. I was a little fiery, and I elected to, frankly, just kind of serve them up. Like, if you are going to serve me on the mound, I'm going to throw these bad boys right down the middle, and we'll see what happens. And they banged, I think, 2 more doubles. I probably gave up 4 doubles that game, throwing 85 mile an hour fastballs right down the middle. The head coach, who decided that I needed to throw in that game for whatever his reasons were, came out to the mound. I'm supposed to wait on the mound for him to take me out. I elected to kind of meet him halfway, gave him the ball, and that was a wrap on that. That was kind of the last.
Well, so I'll cut you there. So clearly, and I wasn't able to put that together through the notes, that happened. But I think, make no mistakes on the show, and I think it's important to have that out. And you managed to do it without throwing anybody under the bus, because, the whole reason we do this show is to tell your story. And at the end of the day, I know you now, and I also know what you would do later on. So everything happens for a reason.
Right.
What I would ask is towards Daniel. Daniel, you not only pitched in the college level, but also a pitching coach. Should he have just outright told them no and not gone out there? Like, do you have an idea of maybe what you would have done, or a thought process as a pitching coach?
I mean, if my guy's on the no-throw list, he's on the no-throw list. That's hands down, because here's the reality is that as a coach, you have a obligation to win games, but not at the cost and detriment of the players.
Mm-hmm.
So you do have a obligation as a coach to make sure that you're keeping everyone safe and injury free on your accord and on the players' accord, because sometimes as a coach, you have to walk yourself back, and you have other coaches on your staff to help walk you back. Hey, this guy can't go, or he doesn't look right. He's not feeling right. We got to make a change. As much as you may not want to do that, like, you have to trust in those coaches. But the same thing applies for the players. Sometimes players are like, no, coach, don't take me out. I'm good. But clearly they are not. So the coaches then have an obligation as well to make sure that they're safe from themselves. So, like, when you don't do those two things, there needs to be an advocation that the player has, regardless of whether there's this power imbalance, because the power imbalance, or I call it a power imbalance, really it's more of a respect thing. Hey, I'm the coach. Like, this is the level of respect that you have to give your coach. But when there's that level of respect is not granted to the young men that are really allowing you to make the money that you make and have the position that you have, yeah, you got to advocate for yourself. And whether right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree or disagree with it, Brant, you probably agree that you probably could have handled it in a number of different ways, but you needed to make sure you made your point and advocated for yourself, because nobody else at that point was advocating for you. So, like, you at the end of the day, man, you got to stick up for yourself. And when the guys that are in charge aren't doing that, then it falls on you. So, like, I think, and I agree with Jim in the fact that your story became something different and much better because of that situation happening, if that makes sense.
Yep, unequivocally. I again, as a 19, 20, 21-year-old, that one used to fire me up, and as a 27-year-old, like, I'm frankly thankful that happened. Like, and again, that story is not a bash on, like, Mississippi State or any of the other coaches that were there. Like, all the assistant coaches were like rock stars. Like, doing great things now, great people. We don't have a negative word to say about any of them.
If anything, it might be indoctrination of just where this level of pressure to win has reached, if that makes sense, because we're pushing everything to the wayside and we have to win, because if we don't win, we're going to replace the players and we're going to replace the coach. And like that kind of sucks. You know?
But I did want to talk to you about, before we move on to Northwest, I just want to talk about the hitting side because, we talk about the difficulty of the SEC. You batted 193, and I looked, and Arkansas and Ole Miss, and you had some games where you really struggled, and I can say that openly because of what I know happened to you on the other side of this. But in real time, man, you talked about I would go bat 600, and then you said that wouldn't have happened in hindsight, but is that humbling that you took through that time important?
Very, very. That Arkansas weekend lives with me. Doesn't eat at me, but it's a funny reminder these days of how hard baseball is. Like it's first SEC weekend. I didn't have a bad out of conference slate before we got in the SEC. Was like feeling confident about it, and then you show up in Ball Walker on a Friday night in front of 10,000 wild Arkansas fans, and you just fan 3 times in a row on a Friday night, and then you have to go play, of all positions, left field in front of all those people. That'll introduce you to playing high level college baseball very, very quickly.
Absolutely. But
look, Brant, I'll say this, dude. 193 against what the SEC throws out there. That's pretty good in my book.
I was gonna say, again, it used to hurt a lot more, but I'm like, dude, I can live with that.
Yeah, for real.
It was tough.
You go to Northwest though, and that's the beauty of doing this show for anybody who listens, or just me and Daniel getting to do all these stories. I once heard the worst analogy for it. I heard it was a stepping stone, and me and Daniel call it a launch pad, a building block. Guys that go to JUCO, I went back and played the Dylan DeLucia clip the day before yesterday, and then we recently had Coach Doug Martin from Northwest Florida State. I don't know why junior college takes such a bad rap, but if you look, me and Daniel have had literally 20 guys probably that played JUCO that are now playing in the MILB. They ended up going to D1. And a lot of guys are now smartly going to junior college as opposed to going D1 and sitting on the bench that first 2 years. And so you go to Northwest, where we've had a lot of guys who ended up going to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, like yourself, rebuilt themselves, retooled themselves. And that's what you did. You go there, end up hitting 385, 18 home runs, 62 RBIs. Talk about just how good it felt to go back there, rebuild, and find yourself.
That is obviously that's my favorite year of baseball. That was, especially with just at that point in my life, outside of baseball, and then obviously including baseball, just a really strange year for me. Like leaving, just on the baseball side, like leaving Mississippi State, the place where you don't, especially, I know the transfer portal is a big thing nowadays. Like even if you have no intention of leaving, you're going to step out just to see what's happening. But like transferring at that point was a lot. Like it was, you're not coming back here. Like you're going to junior college for a year. You're not just going to Southern Miss.
Well, and the thing when you did it also, granted you were going to JUCO probably aiming, but like you wouldn't have been able to go Mississippi State to Southern Miss like you are now. You only had the option to go that route.
Right. And so that was a lot tougher pill to swallow than it is nowadays. And so I'm proud of myself that I did that, hindsight, because I know a lot of guys wouldn't. I know a lot of guys that didn't, that probably would have liked to. But I chose to bet on myself. I was confident that I could figure it out. I had what I deemed at that point a horrible year. horrible representation of me playing baseball at Mississippi State. Frankly, was pretty embarrassing. And so I just wanted a clean slate opportunity at it. Elected to go to Northwest. Obviously, like Coach Carson's great, played a big influence in that. Love him to death. Like one of the best human beings I met in my time doing baseball. But Bill Selby being the hitting coach at Northwest is had the option to do the Chipola or the Sand Jack or go do that whole thing. And I'm like, look, if I'm gonna be successful, I'm either gonna be successful with this or I'm not gonna be successful at it. And it doesnn't matter if I'm successful at Chipola or if I'm successful 20 minutes from the house. Like I'd rather be.
Selby we still got guys coming on the show playing there today, just saying the same thing. Can't say enough about what he's been able to do with guys. So it seems like you ended up at a right destination, no doubt.
Yeah, he's a rock star. Like he ain't teaching you anything that is, you're not swinging water jugs or doing crazy drills. Like he made me a 10-pound pipe filled with sand that was 32 inches long. It was extremely heavy. And that's really the only thing we did that changed. Obviously we had a routine that we'd go through on front toss, but like nothing crazy, but literally him giving me this 10-pound lead pipe and making me hit BP with it, hit front toss with it, talking with me, like teaching me how to hit. Like it's one thing to be a good baseball player that can hit. It's another thing to know how to hit, like think through how to hit a baseball, like in an at bat, how at bats go.
And it's pretty simple when you break it down. Daniel, we have guys who, Brant, you're now talking and you show a lot of maturity. There are guys that we could still ask them, would you rather hit 183 in the SEC or hit 385 in Northwest? And they would tell you the 183 because they want to play. Dude, no, you talked about it being the most fun year. Dude, hitting 385 and 18 jacks is 385 and 18 jacks. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, like there's no being. Again, I'm not knocking playing big time baseball. Like I'm not knocking that, but there's nothing more fun than playing just like down and dirty, gritty JUCO doubleheaders and eating peanut butter and sandwich that's been sitting out on the bus and a hot bottle of butter that somebody left under the bus, like, and then lacing it back up and playing 9 more innings. And like, there's
what I love is the pitch Coach Doug Martin threw on here the other day. He said if anybody's listening, talk about an added incentive to go play JUCO for him. He's like, look, people pay $1,000 to come spend the weekend at the beach right down the street from us. We'll pay you to come here and you can hang out at the same beach. And I told Daniel, I was like, man, sign me up.
Can't beat it. Like, can't beat it. It was so much fun. Like I'm so thankful for that year. I'm so thankful that it went as well as it did. So thankful again, like doing it 20 minutes from the house where my family gets to see me play every game, like gets to watch that year in real time instead of following on Twitter. Like that was a very special year. That was
no doubt. So the interesting part for you is you're a guy who thought you were going to go to Ole Miss. You end up going to Mississippi State, and then you end up at Northwest. And now here comes, Southern Miss. I mean, you are the most well-traveled Mississippian there is. So, what was it about Southern Miss? And did you consider actually leaving the state of Mississippi? You joked with Daniel about Florida, but like, is it just, hey, you're gonna do this thing in Mississippi no matter what?
Not really. It was more at that point in time, like when I made the decision to go to Southern Miss. Southern Miss I took a visit there when I was in high school, when I first started kind of really getting recruited. And I remember that I loved it. Like I loved Hattiesburg. I loved the small town of it, but also that it's not a college town. Like it's a town. Like they got a Target. Like they got stuff. And I loved it. I loved every part of it. I loved the Pete, how it wasn't this coliseum of college baseball, but it was on top of you, and everything was nice and everything was small and detailed. But being 16, 17 years old, that wasn't cool enough, and so I chose a different route. But always in my head, I kind of loved the thought of playing baseball for Southern Miss. Like you see like how passionate fans at Southern Miss are. Like it is, playing baseball there was
The only problem I have with Southern Miss is their rendition of the "throw it in the dirt" chant. They can throw that in the trash. God, that thing bothers me. They were doing it in Knoxville, in regionals, and I was like, oh, God, that's just as bad as the Whistler. But all the Tennessee players have actually came on here and said the Whistler's still worse. So maybe that's just my take on it. But 2019. So it's really cool, man. You go from what happened in Northwest. You're a part of a really good Southern Miss team that goes to the postseason. You end up at Alex Box. Obviously, I watched that series. I don't know you then, so it's kind of cool full circle. It was a very good LSU team that obviously would run into a very good Florida State team. But man, even though you come up short, you nonetheless you pick a school, you go there. Not just you're successful, but the team is successful. Everything you probably could have imagined when you choose Southern Miss. So, just how good did it feel that you probably felt like you chose the right school and made the right decision?
great. Like Southern Miss was everything that I wanted out of playing college baseball. It was fun playing baseball there. It was fun being on the baseball field and actually playing baseball, and it was fun with the group of guys when we weren't playing baseball. Like at that point in time, I was old enough to realize that um, while college baseball is a full time job and it's where all your time is, like it's pretty important to have really good people around and like really good friends and like really have fun when you're not at the baseball field. Um, it's important to play for a guy like Scott Berry, who is like you can't beat that in terms of just a good guy who a lot of coaches when you go on recruiting meet, you go on recruiting visits, you do whatever, they give you the we're here to grow them as men as well as play baseball. But like again, no knock on most baseball coaches, but they're there to win baseball games. Like you're there to win the games.
I didn't actually have this plan, but since you brought up Scott Berry's name, how surprised were you? I really felt like, the last 2 years when you consider, getting to host in 2022, they do get past that LSU team because I was there in regionals. Um, you know, they get back-to-back years, they get a team on fire, right? Between the Ole Miss team and the Tennessee team. I was really surprised. I thought he was finally going to get that team to Omaha and have a chance to compete for national championship. Were you pretty surprised he wasn't able to get them there?
I was. I really believed that they were going to be able to do it. Hated that they weren't able to, but everybody talks about like Pete Taylor Park Magic. Like I thought for certain I'd have bet a good amount of money on it.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah, I didn't think Tennessee was going to, and we had a lot of Tennessee guests and know a lot of those guys, but it was just like you said, the magic of it. I thought them being at home, him announcing it was his last season, it just felt like it was all ready made. And once you get to Omaha, me and Daniel talking about it, all bets are off. You can say the other 7 teams are better, but anything can happen once you get there. You just got to get there. So it was pretty surprising that they didn't.
I agree. That team was really really good. That group was true freshmen when my last year. Or I guess the COVID year makes everything wonky on my end thinking back. But they were freshmen slash, got 10 games
Well,
or something.
and that was the last thing I had for you. It'd only be right, the journey you've been on, the roller coaster. It would only be right that you finish out with COVID. You ultimately decide to hang up the cleats, man. But just you went down, you went up, you went down, you went up, and ultimately it's got to end on the down, right? You got to have baseball taken away by this freaking thing that is taking over the entire country. So as much as it's a down thing, how devastated were you to have that season taken away, especially since you had found the place that you felt like you belonged?
Right. It was tough. Like the shock of it. Um, always tell people like it really didn't hit me as hard as I anticipated it was going to. And I think because like you can predict what like senior night's going to feel like, or like what like your last game, like losing to super regional and that's it. Like you can envision that in your head. You can't envision a team meeting in the locker room in March telling you that your baseball career's over. That's never happened and will probably never happen again. So the shock factor of it to me, it really didn't didn't sting me as much as I thought it was going to. What stung me was guys like Matthew Guidry, that was at Southern Miss, an all-timer at Southern Miss. He's one of my best friends in the world. Like seeing a guy like that who like gave like 4 years, 5 years to Southern Miss, like one of the longest hit streak, ended it on one of the longest hit streaks in the history of Southern Miss. Like gamer, like was going to have a good year that year and go get to play professional baseball. And watching stuff like that get taken away from people who, like I told you, at that point I was kind of ready to be done. Like I was ready to get a job. I was tired of being a broke college student. And to see a guy like that who wanted it and deserved it and had given, 5 years to it, and to see it ripped away from people like that, that was the hard part. The hard part was that, and it came harder for me maybe 2-3 years down the road when I don't know why it took that long, but like looking back on it as an adult and saying that was my last time getting to lace it up is tough as I get older.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you have multiple chapters of your story, and that was turning the page, on one chapter and ending one chapter, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of the story. I mean, obviously we had a chance in Omaha to see you're doing big things. So tell me a little bit about, what you got going on currently and what the new role has you doing.
Yeah. So my role now, I think the exact role would be field sales and marketing specialist. So essentially what I'm doing for Rawlings is I have it's kind of like a pop-up retail setup, like every new Rawlings Easton bat, every new Rawlings Easton glove, hats, the whole thing. I essentially am choosing any sort of event, any sort of tournament, mainly tournaments with 100 plus teams, 200 plus teams, within kind of a 6-7 hour drive, somewhere that's comfortable for me, where I'm not gonna necessarily have to break my back for 12 hours to get there. I get to choose a tournament that I go to on the weekend, an event, and I drive there, set up, usually like a Saturday and a Sunday, sit out there all day, hang out at the baseball field, which is crazy that's a job. I'm so thankful for it. But I'm sitting out at the baseball field, talking new product, talking gloves, talking bats, and just kind of doing straight to consumer sales. And then you have stuff, like y'all saw on Facebook, with the Athletic House, where demo days where, Monday through Thursday when I'm don't have too much going on, pop down there and do a little setup and let people try out all the different products.
Daniel, he's a kid's best friend. He's got the bats out there, and you can go out there and just start swinging and teeing off, man.
Yeah, he's the kid's best friend, but parents' worst nightmare. I mean,
I hate it. I always every tournament, every 10 minutes, I get at least one parent that's like, I hate that you're here. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Now, which bat do you want?
Yep. You're like, you know what? This is the new thing. Let me tell you about the technology in this
Daniel,
bat.
there was the guy that didn't have the kid there when I was there with him the other day, and he was asking about every single bat. I'm guessing he has the kid that's not very good, but he's going to get him the bat that's going to make him a pro.
Got to that $430 bat. I always tell people the warranty comes with 2 free home runs.
There you go.
Nice.
Nice. Well, so a little bit different aspect of baseball, but still within the realms of the game. And, that's for guys who love baseball, that's a perfect little scenario for you. I mean, you get to travel, you get to create your own schedule, so to speak, and you just get to talk baseball every weekend or every time you get to go out, which is unbelievable.
Think about it. You said, Daniel, he was in Omaha. I mean, he gets to go to Omaha.
I mean, for real.
Yeah, you can't beat it. Like it's really, I always have people tell me my job looks really fun, and my job isn't not fun. Setting up an entire, retail store on a Saturday and then breaking it down in the heat in the summer and then breaking it down again the next day, certainly isn't fun. But my job is really cool. Like it's really cool to get to, get paid to go to baseball fields and talk baseball and be around it. It's really thankful for it.
Yeah, Out of all the times you've had to do it now, you've gotten it down to a science. What's the fastest you can set that thing up?
If they let me back the van in up to the spot, the tough part is when they don't let you in the park and you got to carry, tables and tents 150 yards.
That's not fun.
That's when it sucks. But if you let me back the van up, I can probably get that thing up, and I can probably be up and running in about 30 minutes.
Nice. See,
Yeah.
broken it down
He's got
to
his
a
whole
science.
setup of bats, gloves. Like I said, he's got the pop-up batting cage and everything. So I mean, when he says 30 minutes, that's actually really good. He's got a lot of stuff he got to get up.
Now, that pop-up batting cage will make you say some stuff that you don't want to say. That thing weighs, I'm not kidding, like balled up north of 250, 300 pounds. And I've got to like power clean it into the back of the van. So like once work is over, it's not actually over until I get that.
That's when the hard work begins. That's when the manual label starts.
Daniel, here's your best story of that pop-up tent the other day. So there's a 12-year-old kid. He goes in there. He's swinging it so good right-handed. He decides he's going to bat left-handed. He's feeling himself. But then Brant has to let him know, drop the truth bomb on him that he's using a softball bat. His last name may have been Cross, possibly.
Got to tell him. You'd be surprised. That one's not as bad as like when I get like a 40, 45-year-old guy grabbing a drop 11 softball bat and just swinging it as hard as he can. I'm like, brother, you're gonna bust my bat in half. I'm gonna have to take it.
We're not having that, sir.
Right.
But Daniel, I know you're not surprised by that story about Jackson at all.
No, he should have been like, hey, buddy, if you like that bat, try this one. No, man, that's unbelievable. I'm actually jealous because you get to continue, your avenue in the game of baseball. But your story has been told, Brant. We gotta play a game. It's called This or That. We play it with everybody. So you're not getting out of here without playing. So I hope you're ready.
Sure.
All right, it's very simple. I give you two options. You choose one option or the other. You have to be decisive. You can't say both, can't say neither. Just go with your gut, go with your heart, or whatever the first one you hear is. You just got to pick one.
All right, let's rock.
Jim, This or That. Who is it brought to you by?
Chinook Cedary, 8 flavors mild to wild. Daniel, everybody needs to pay attention. We got the paperwork done today for Hunter Inslee. I'm going to be dropping that code tomorrow.
Hunter Inslee, the man who runs through walls, the man who is just a magician coming in at the plate. Nobody can catch him. Nobody can stop him. Nothing. He is the man. But he'll have his code up. Y'all, like Jim said, go get your seeds, use the code. If it's not his code, use a code. Help support the athletes, help grow the game. And by the way, you're going to get the best seeds on planet Earth. 8 flavors, mild to wild. If you're asking me what my favorite flavor is, Smokehouse Barbecue. It's an all-day seed. It's something you can eat multiple bags of throughout the day and not get sick of it. So, hey, you can either take my word for it, or you can log in tomorrow, use Hunter's code, and stock up and try them all. But Brant, let's get to it, man. First question out the gate. Would you rather grill out or go out to eat?
Rather go out to eat.
What if I narrowed it down and I said just you cook at home, whether that's grilling or something else?
I'd probably rather I'm going to cook at home.
All right. So follow-up questions. If you're cooking at home and you got to impress somebody, it could be date night, it could be whatever, man. Like, what's the go-to meal? What are you cooking?
I make a mean shrimp Alfredo.
Ooh.
It's a solid answer. I thought he's going to come with like grilled cheese in a second.
I do make a gnarly grilled cheese also. If needed, I can make a grilled cheese. But I like to think that I make a pretty sharp shrimp Alfredo.
All right. Shrimp Alfredo. I like it. I like it. All right. Sticking with food. Who has better food? The Roost or the Left Field Lounge?
Roost.
The Roost. What is it?
That's gonna burn some people right there.
Hot take right there. People are
I might have to
not gonna
cut that clip out of this episode if they don't want people coming after Brant right there.
A roost. All right. Would you rather wear Sunday blacks or your gold Southern Miss unis?
Got to wear those gold Southern Miss unis.
Something about those.
They fit well.
Hey.
They fit well. They fit well and they look well. As long as
Were
you're
you
wearing.
were you a fan of the blacks though? Because Keegan, Billingsley, all those. I mean, they were fans of the blacks, but you have a lot of people who are not. They just want to stick to traditional maroon.
I like the blacks. Good uniform.
What's more fun, beating Ole Miss while at Southern Miss or beating Ole Miss while at Mississippi State?
I hate to do this real quick. Can I throw my computer on the charger real quick before I answer the question? I hate
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I don't want it to die in the middle of us talking.
I'll be a professional here in filler. Jim, he got so shook by that question, he needed to take a break.
Yeah,
I don't think the computer. I don't think it's the computer. I just think he needed a minute.
He's going to phone a friend. I don't know what to do with this question. And then the reality is, I think he might be low key an Ole Miss guy because he wanted to go there originally, and so he doesn't like beating them at all.
Maybe. It's going to be interesting. What do you think he's going to pick?
Southern Miss.
Think so? I would pick them just because. I mean, you heard the story. Like, I'd pick Southern Miss too. All right, you're back.
I would have been a lot more upset if that thing would have died right in the middle of the talk.
Then it would have been all right. We would have just made up the answers for you, and you just had to take what you get. But going back to the question, what's more fun, beating Ole Miss while playing for Southern Miss or beating Ole Miss while playing for Mississippi State?
Ooh. I think I'm going to keep doing it. It's got to be beating Ole Miss playing for Southern Miss.
I think it means more if you're at Southern Miss because they're considered little brother.
They're considered that. The reason it's fun and it's fun to watch is I think the only people that genuinely think, like obviously football is a different thing, basketball is a different thing, but like baseball, like there's really no little brother in Southern Miss. Like Southern Miss is an elite college baseball program.
But I think now that the Ole Miss has that championship, they really believe in their mind that Southern Miss is inferior.
Yeah. So getting to watch Southern Miss beat Ole Miss, and again, it's not like we're so thankful. We can't believe we beat Ole Miss. It's just like we're not sure why the little brother thing still exists in baseball. So it's always fun.
That's a guy who's basically, Mr. Mississippi with the way you traveled. How good was it though, man, to see, Mississippi State and Ole Miss go back to back?
It was really cool. I'm a Southern Miss guy. Like I love Hattiesburg, I love Southern Miss, but watching baseball in Mississippi get its moment back to back years. Because everybody from here knows that, it doesn't get it doesn't get Florida recognition or Texas recognition, but like I would bet if they wanted to suit it up, like people in Mississippi would love nothing more than
me and Greg James have talked about it. When you, especially just DC alone, but you throw in the north half of Mississippi and include all the schools, when you go per capita, because obviously it doesn't have nearly the population, I bet per capita North Mississippi is cranking out more college players in America than anybody.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Like, and even and the fact that it's probably close even without per capita. Like even when you go per capita, like there's no other state playing baseball at the same level that Mississippi is with the resources that a state like Mississippi has. Like it's Mississippi baseball is top 3 or 4 states in the country, and its population is probably a fifth of the size of the other 3.
Definitely. Would you rather be trapped in a cave with a bear or in the swamp with an alligator?
Probably a bear.
There's no good scenario. To be
There's
fair.
no, yeah, like neither.
You had a big pause.
Waiting for the third option.
Yeah. No third option here. I mean, it's just the best of the two worst case scenarios. But I was talking to our last guest, Dylan Dreiling, and I said, I think the alligator's got to be the tougher one, because if they drag you under, man, it's over. Like, it's over.
I at least want to take a deep breath while I'm getting mauled to death instead of.
Well, Dylan also said that he would make friends with the bear. I don't know what world he lives in. Daniel told him, I've met bears in my time, and none of them made me think that they wanted to be friends.
Not one. Not even the little cubs that run around. They even look mean too.
I was just arrogant enough to think for a long time that I was able to potentially. Everybody always has a conversation about like fighting a bear. I was truly under the impression that if I ever had to like actually fight a bear, that I could potentially save myself. And it's funny you asked that, because literally yesterday I'm sitting on the couch at an Airbnb in Gulf Shores with my girlfriend, and a bear fight video came across my Twitter, and I finally conceded to the fact that I probably would be in a tough spot.
Well, the question used to be, would you rather wrestle a bear or a tiger? And a lot of people like have this idea, would tell me and Daniel, a lot of them are like, I'd climb a tree, and it's like, they both can climb a tree. I would outrun a bear. Bear runs 35 miles an hour. They started to figure out, as me and Daniel would enlighten them, yeah, you're not going to survive either, no matter what option or idea you come up with.
Yeah. At that point, just choose the bear and get it over with.
I'll give you a comparison. The next time you go to work, grab one of them Easton bats and just hit yourself as hard as you can. That would be like a bear popping you in the head, like with that force.
Don't
I think
do that, Brant, because you've had numerous concussions, and I want you to be able to say your ABCs in 3 years.
For real. The bear would be like, oh yeah, this is the guy I want. This dude's
this guy can't even count. This guy can't even count to 12. Let's get in.
We're not gonna have to do much here. No. Like I said, no win in that scenario. Next question is, would you rather, or who's a better hitter? Was it when you played with Jake Mangum or Austin Riley when you played with him?
So it's not who's better overall. When you played with him was the key part of that question.
When I played with them,
mm-hmm. Because you're talking about Austin in high school and Jake in college. That's why I framed it that way, because I felt like it was a pretty good question.
That's a good question, because it's a hard one to answer. But again, the rules of the game, I'll choose a hard one. It's got to be Austin. It's got to be like.
But at least it made you think, right? You're talking about
that's a good
guy. You still got to think about it.
Yeah, like because Jake, our freshman year of college, it was. I mean, that was insane. Like hitting four or whatever, he hit 421. Like in the SEC as a true freshman, the guy couldn't get out. That was wild. But also, again, the eye test that I can take myself back to being at DeSoto Central a year prior, and like watching that happen also is off the rails.
With him basically pushing, he's right there, AAA pushing towards being in. I mean, reflecting and thinking about both those guys, and you played with them, that'll be so cool for you. Just, I mean, especially if you can get a chance for them to play in the same game against each other. Man, I played with those guys my whole life.
That would be a really cool one. Another cool one is like Brent Rooker for the Oakland A's, Memphis guy, is also one of my best friends. Like was in his wedding. Another one of my really, really good friends. And so like I've never gotten to make it to a Braves A's game. But a situation, it always comes up around the trade deadline of the Braves looking to potentially make a move and get somebody like Brent Rooker, like to add to the lineup. And I'm like, that would be a sweet situation to have both of those guys in Atlanta. That would be a dream scenario. But yeah, Jake will make it to the MLB. Jake will be a very good MLB baseball player for a long time.
The reality is you mentioned it before. When you see guys like that, they just look different. Like you see them, you're like, man, like as good as I am, those guys are just different.
Yep.
And it shows, especially with a guy like Austin and Jake. Those are just two examples of guys that you played with that were just different. And you see the fruits of their labor right now. But last question before we let you bounce. If I walked to you and I said, all right, you have two options here, Brant. In this briefcase, you have $10 million and the first pick in the draft. So don't worry about age and all that. This is, real time right now. So I say, all right, here's $10 million and you get to be the first pick in the draft. Or in this briefcase, I have two national championships. One is for you, for Southern Miss, and the other one is for Mississippi State. You get 2 rings. You get all the notoriety that goes with those 2 championships. Which do you choose? The money or the championships?
Good question again. Y'all are hitting me with.
Hey, we come with it. It's not supposed to be easy.
It'd be really easy to just say money. I mean, but
yes, it would be. It would
I'm gonna
be
choose.
very.
I'm gonna choose money. I would take $10 million, and
I'll be honest with you. We've asked that question to every guest, but you were framed it with the hardest of anybody. You were the only one that was ever asked for 2 national championships because you played with 2 teams. So we upped the ante on the price. And then we went ahead and put 2 national championships. So it was a little harder for you than most guys.
now if you'd have gone 2 national championships, which I didn't get to play 2 years at Southern Miss, but if you'd have gone 2 natties for the Golden Eagles, I might
messed up the question, Daniel.
It's all right. Here's the thing. Like most guys, college guys will be like, oh, give me the national championship. And while I can respect that and I understand that, like I get the grind and the brotherhood that you create and setting a goal and working your ass off and you achieving that goal. Like I get that. But where I'm at in my life, $10 million would just change a lot of different things and way more than being a national championship ever could. So
the national championship would be great, but those bills show up every month.
Oh, don't they? Don't they? Brant, man, it's been a blast, dude. Glad we got a chance to talk and rap a little bit. Anything you want to plug or promote before we let you get out of here?
I mean, you can. A lot of the business that I do is via Facebook. So like obviously you can search my name on Facebook. Instagram, same thing. Post a lot of stuff on Instagram. Those are really the only 2 that I use. I've grown into my Facebook era, so most of my stuff is coming through Facebook.
Even though I'm on Twitter as we're talking, it's trash.
Yeah, Twitter for me is I'm not much engaging on Twitter. I'm just taking in what little spots I can. But Facebook's the one for me. So I'd encourage, especially if you got kids playing baseball, you got girls playing softball. Like again, if you got somebody that is getting you the hookup with stuff, by all means. But if you're in a pinch, obviously like shoot me a message on Facebook or if there's any way of like sticking contact info in the info or whatever it may be, like would always be happy to help. Really appreciate you guys.
Just to plug another one of our sponsors, you can find your equipment, I assume, because you were set up there at the Athletic House.
Yeah, so the Athletic House carries Easton Rawlings. So they got all the icons, all the height fires, all the Heart of the Heights, Pro Preferreds, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really good local spot in South Haven to get it done.
Look, all y'all people out there listening in the Mid-South area, let me tell you something. All right. And I know who you are. I'm not going to throw your names out here, even though I could. But there's a lot of friends that I know and a lot of people that we talk to and a lot of people that follow us that have kids. And all them kids, every weekend, I see all these pictures and videos and all kinds of nonsense on social media. So I know what y'all be doing on the weekends. What you really need to be doing is go on to Facebook, hook up with my boy Brant so he can get your kid the right gear so that they're successful. And while I know what you're saying, well, he's already got this or she's already got that. It don't matter. They ain't got the best. If you want the best, you better call Brant because he's going to hook you up. He's going to let you know. He's going to give you the knowledge that you need and the tools that you need to be the best player that you can possibly be. So with that, Brant, I appreciate you, man. If there's anything we can do for you along the way, please reach out to us, man.
Yeah, we'll do. Really appreciate it. Y'all love the podcast. Really enjoyed it. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, of course. That is Brant Blaylock, everybody. Jim, let's take a quick little break. Then we got to come back and we got to talk about the draft, which is days away. We're going to talk rounds 2 and 3.